Let's move on now to the Carolina Panthers in our free agency offseason review. But before we do that, if you have not already, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and ring that bell to get notified when we create new Panthers content. This is our final series when it comes to the free agency transactions that have happened so far in the offseason before Ryan and I start to pivot towards the previewing of the 2023 NFL season, which means a lot more Panthers content, both preseason and also during the season. So be sure to subscribe, ring that bell so you can get notified when new Panthers content gets released. Ryan, let's go on to the Panthers now. The Panthers, I think, are the kind of purest definition of what a pseudo rebuild is. They got their franchise quarterback. They almost won the division last year. Yes, it was the NFC South. But after they fired Matt Rule, they actually started to play a lot better. This defense is good. This defense was keeping them in games a lot. And when Sam Darnold, PJ Walker kind of started to kind of get their feet wet a little bit, help kind of manage some games, they were able to just grind some games out. And they beat Seattle in Seattle, which was kind of a shock, keep this division competitive. And now I say you look at it, obviously we all know who they drafted first overall, Bryce Young. They did bring in some veteran receivers who I don't think are going to be anything great, but I think this is where I say pseudo rebuild is because I don't think they're all going to have 1,000-yard receiving years, or I mean, some might come close, but they're going to give their young franchise quarterback reliable weapons to throw to.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. I think if you look at what the Panthers have done, they somewhat solidified the offensive line last year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They brought in a young quarterback, and then I think even with trading DJ Moore, they brought in pretty solid weapons, right? Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, the second-round pick. I think he has a lot of potential. So let's just go ahead. Let's jump right into the offense and kind of break down some of their additions here. So starting off, Terrace Marshall Jr. Staying. DJ Chark is the wide receiver addition that I didn't mention. I think that's probably the biggest one for this season, because I think if he can play all 17 games, I mean, he's a 1,000-yard outside receiver.
Well, for the receiver room potentially, but the biggest addition was Miles Sanders. Adding Miles Sanders, he's a 1,200-yard running back already, and that was with him sharing a decent bit of reps for someone of his caliber. Him in the backfield with Bryce Young, I will say, as a Falcons fan, makes me nervous. So because I think that could be a very, very strong quarterback running back duo, because Miles Sanders has a lot of potential. And so, but once again, though, going to that theme, like a veteran offensive skill position player that comes in with a lot of experience to help take a lot of the weight off of your rookie quarterback. Going to see a lot of read options, going to see a lot of running between the tackles. Miles Sanders, I know he's 25, 26, coming to a new team. I don't know how many times running backs switch teams and then contend to lead the league in rushing yards. But Miles Sanders, I think, has a legitimate chance of doing that this year.
No, yeah. I really like what they did. I think Miles Sanders is, while he's not an elite 3-down running back, he is a true 3-down running back, right? And he presents a threat on every down to run and catch the football. And he had a really solid season in Philadelphia. I know that's not saying a lot because Philadelphia's offense was so potent last year that he was getting very favorable matchups, whether it was box counts or coverage matchups. So that in itself, I think, will be interesting to see him adjust to that new system.
Yeah.
But I think Frank Reich was there when he was drafted, if I remember right. And so they do have a familiarity with each other. Another signing that I really liked was the Hayden Hurst signing. While he's not an elite tight end, I like his floor. He's very consistent, doesn't drop a lot of passes, and he runs good routes and knows how to get open. So I like that one as well.
There's all, and it is overall impressive, like the veteran receivers that they brought in. But I want to go back to Miles Sanders here and the potential that I think he could have is, how many yards and stats were taken away from him last year just because of Jalen Hurts and Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. Miles Sanders went 1,269 yards, 11 touchdowns, and then he didn't have too many receiving. He had 20 catches for 78 yards, nothing too crazy. But on the running side, Jalen Hurts had 760 with 13 touchdowns. Kenneth Gainwell had 240 with 4 touchdowns, and then Boston Scott had 217 for 3 touchdowns. And there was not saying if it all went to Miles Sanders, and some of those Jalen Hurts ones were longer runs as well, but several of those were also 1-yard QB sneaks. Miles Sanders and, of course, also that offense here. But you're right. They improved on this offensive line. I think they are going to be a very run-heavy team with how young this quarterback is and also with the veteran experience that is on the team. He has an opportunity here to kind of be a positive influence on veteran running backs in the league here, because a lot of them they're normally dying out here by the time that they get to, well, unfortunately, 25, 26, which is what Miles Sanders is at.
No, yeah. And I also really like Chuba Hubbard. And then behind those two guys, there's Spencer Brown, Cameron Peoples, and Raheem Blackshear. And for me, those names don't really matter as much because they're just going to be in a rotation. So I really like that. Another thing, the last thing I'll say about the offense, I like Andy Dalton being there behind Bryce Young as just a solid veteran voice in the air. Kind of like the Josh McCown of this generation, right? He's been around the league. He's played in a lot of different offenses. Experienced veteran. He could come in and play in a pinch if he has to. But I like that signing as well. So
yeah, same.
Let's move on now to the defense, and not a lot of additions here. I didn't think they really needed it after last season. They had a really solid season last year, but I like what they have going on this side of the ball. They play really aggressive. They get after the passer really well, and that allows them to be aggressive on the outside. They did add Von Bell from Cincinnati, which is a really big addition. I think he will fit right in and play a big role for them.
Yeah. Well, and then getting Shy Tuttle from New Orleans, also Deshaun Williams as well from Denver, is also just beefing up that defensive line. And so, but kind of what you said is they had a good system going on, especially the second half of the year defensively. They were just trying to have the offense put some points up on the board. And some games they were able to do that. Some games they weren't. They're going to be more consistent, I think, on the offensive side of the ball this year, which makes me nervous as a Falcons fan, because this defense got even better and this offense is getting better. And with how weak the NFC South is, to me, I personally think this is a two-horse race. I think the Falcons still might be the better team. Maybe I'm a little biased there. But the Panthers here, though, it's this, with how weak the NFC is overall, I could see them maybe making a fringe playoff run, succeed. And if the Falcons don't pan out, they could fight for this division. They were fighting for it last year, and they really only improved, to be honest. So losing DJ Moore is going to hurt in their overall offensive production, but I think they made up for a lot of his stats with the veteran pieces that they got. But I think that a good season is something similar to what the Texans had, where they're just showing progress, especially in Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Keeping him healthy all year, showing improvement. But in general, though, I think it's a fringe playoff team. I mean, they were a fringe playoff team last year. I think they did go 7-10, but they've improved a lot. And I would not be surprised if they made the wild card this year.
No, yeah, that for me, I was going to say, I think making a playoff berth this season. I think they're getting an upgrade from what they had last year at the quarterback position already in Bryce Young. Losing DJ Moore hurts, but they brought in pieces to replace him. Not a single piece to replace him, but a collective group of pieces that I think will... The
Moneyball approach.
Yeah, exactly. So I like what they did there. I think this offensive line should continue to improve. I like the Chandler Zavala draft pick. And I think they'll be a wild card team come January of 2024. So I think that's going to be really interesting. But let's go ahead and wrap up the Panthers, not draft recap, offseason recap there. If you guys have not already, please go down below and like and subscribe and leave a comment on what your favorite addition to the Panthers roster was. Was it a draftee? Was it a free agent signing? Let us know down below. And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.